Well, hello, everybody. Happy Friday. I am here today having a tea talk with Mike Atkins from the Comox Valley Regional Airport, and he is their CEO. Thank you so much for taking time to have a chat with me today, Mike.
Well, Rachel, it's always a pleasure to speak. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I always enjoy our conversations. So I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And so I'm going to read out a little bit of information about who you are. And I'm going to tell you now, I added a little something at the end that you didn't tell me. and and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So Mike joined the Comox Valley Airport Commission as Chief Executive Officer in January of 2021. And may I say how delighted I was when I saw that in the news. A former commander of 19 Wing Comox, he brings significant leadership, team building, crisis, and strategic planning experience developed over a 35-year military career. Mike's love for aviation started flying the veritable Sea King helicopter from the Canadian warships on the East Coast. He then made the jump quite literally to search and rescue, where he found his passion to rescue those in need and strengthen the Canadian SAR system for all. Prior to assuming his new role, he was the Canadian Defense Advisor to the United Kingdom. Mike is honored to join the CVAC team. He and his family have fallen in love with the Comox Valley and are eager to settle down and put those roots down after a nomadic military career. I'm really happy that you are here, and I'm really happy that that nomadic component is over, although I know you really enjoyed your time of service. And I just wanted to add that this was a very humble bio, Mike. Like, you served our country for a very long time. And I personally just want to thank you for that work. I've seen that demonstrated in the work that you did with the 19 Wing. And I just want everyone to know in the riding that after I was first elected, the 19 Wing was, of course, hoping to get the search and rescue facility in Comox. And I remember working with the then mayor, Paul Ives, very hard on making sure that the project came to our valley. And I know that our national defense minister heard from me quite frequently. And I think every time he saw me coming was like, yes, Rachel, Comox is the place. And I was really happy when we got it. It means a lot to our area and our region. And I know that you were the wing commander there for 3 years rather than the usual two to oversee this important project. And I think you did an amazing job. That's just my opinion, but I want to thank you for that. So that's my little addition. So, coming back to your role right now as the CEO of the Comox Valley Airport, it's a beautiful airport and it's very unique. Can you just tell us a little bit about how it works and how it benefits our area?
Sure. So the airport's been here since 1942. It was built by by the Department of National Defense, the Air Force, in defense against possible Japanese invasion. But the civilian part of the airport started in 1956. It was a small civilian terminal, a satellite terminal, if you will, from Victoria, and the flights were fairly infrequent. In 1996, Department of Transport started to sell off their airports and get out of the airport business, and so it was sold then to the Comox Valley Airport Commission. A commission stood up to run the airport. In 2001, WestJet was one of the first large national carriers that came in, and the growth has been exponential since then. 2004, the terminal as we know it opened, and we've gone from 50,000 passengers to most recently 400,000 passengers in 2018. Unfortunately, we're down to the 50,000 passengers again, but we don't expect that to last long. The benefits it brings to the valley are innumerable, but really what it does is it connects the Comox Valley to the world. And we are a global society right now. People like myself are transplants that come in from other regions. We still have family spread across the world, or business. Business moves at the speed of information and relationships, and having an airport here helps to foster those relationships. And again, it's a great driver of economic activity. It's an enabler to help people get to where they need to be or get home at the end of the day. And we're happy and very proud to be able to be that link to the world from the Comox Valley.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and I know they've helped me get home quite a few times as well. And I know for a community and our region that is not a huge urban area, having the capacity for international flights is huge. I'm just wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about how the partnership with the 19 Wing and the region provide us with such a great service.
Well, many in Canada might not be aware that aviation in Canada, passenger aviation specifically, is a user pay model. You pay the airlines for the tickets. Part of that ticket fee is the NAV Canada fee to use the routes, and the other part of that ticket fee goes to the airport or the terminal to maintain the runways and to the terminal building. And so with our partnership with 19 Wing, they provide the airport. So the federal government, in effect, provides the airport, which they maintain for military use. Now, the civilian airliners coming in pay landing fees to compensate them, but we don't take on the large capital requirements in the local area to build that. The other aspect with 19 Wing is they're just such great partners to the airport. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement whereby myself as the commander, I had to fly to Winnipeg and Ottawa and on a regular basis as you have to fly to Ottawa. And it's so convenient to be able to drive to your community airport, get on an airplane and go to where you need to be.
Mhm.
Before the airport was really that busy, you had to get down to Victoria to get on a flight. So that's 3 more hours of driving, 3.5 bad weather. So it's just the ability to have that international connection right here from a hometown and not have to drive hours to get to it. It just makes Comox Valley that much more desirable to have that air link for people who want to relocate here or people who live here.
Well, absolutely. And I definitely have heard from the tourism industry in our region. Not only is it helpful for the valley, but the whole North Island, because it really does, like you said, it opens that up. It allows people to get to Comox a little bit quicker, and folks can rely on that when they come from overseas to enjoy our beautiful region. So this is the second role that I've had the honor of working with you, Mike, as I mentioned earlier. I worked with you for over 3 years as the wing commander for 19 Wing. I'm just wondering if you could tell our audience a little bit about how your current understanding of the wing helps with the role that you have as CEO.
Well, again, I guess it's two parts. First off, my love of aviation was fostered in the Canadian Forces, and so I have an innate sense of how that works. I'm not a industry, don't have a lot of experience in the industry itself, but I know how the airport works, having run it before. And as I said before, it's really it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So I have relationships with the current wing commander, and by doing that, I can best represent the airport because I know where his headspace is. I know the challenges he goes. And likewise, we have open lines of communication. So we talk about issues before they become large issues and work together. Uh, Again, it's as much a benefit for the base as it is for the Comox Valley. A lot of the people, the SAR school, as you mentioned, well, they'll have students coming in from all over Canada to take the course or to do recurrent training. And the fact that they can fly right into Comox for that just makes that so much more appealing for the location of a base. Comox is not central to Canada. So, when you're coming from Greenwood, Nova Scotia, it's a long way to go, but having that direct connection, it definitely assists in shortening your days, because any time you spend at work is time you spend away from your family.
That's very true. So, as you know, in our riding, we actually have 4 airports. We have yours, of course, the one in Campbell River, Powell River, and Port Hardy. The last few months have just been incredibly hard for the whole region, and especially the impacts of COVID have been hard on all of our airports. I'm just wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about what are the impacts for the Comox Valley Airport, and what are the next steps that you hope to see happen to get us where we need to be?
So yeah, the last 15, 18 months have been exceptionally difficult. We're proud at the Comox Airport to have remained open throughout, supporting essential travel. People still need to travel for a variety of reasons, and the ability to be able to do that at a Comox, I think, has been helpful. The reality, however, is that our revenues have been down significantly, and I go back to that user pay model. So when we're flying 60 to 70,000 passengers this last year, as opposed to 400, it's going to hurt our bottom line. We made a commitment to our staff early on to keep them employed, knowing that a lot of them, this was the only means they had to support themselves. And we're very thankful that the federal government came forward with the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. So that's been a terrific benefit for us at the airport. I know not all airports are in a similar circumstance. Campbell River, Port Hardy, they're town-owned airports, so they didn't have the same level of support, or could not get the same level of support. And so I'm sure it's been exceptionally hard for them. We entered the pandemic in good shape financially. We have been considering a terminal expansion for a number of years, but hadn't quite acted on it yet. So we didn't have a large debt load. But I know airports across the country have taken on significant amounts of debt to maintain operations, and that debt will have to be paid back at some point. And again, user paid. What we're looking for is, we're very happy to see the plan put in place by the BC government and by other provincial governments. It's allowed us to plan for a return of operations, work with our air carrier partners, who really are the ones who decide what they're going to do. And they've been chomping at the bit to restart once public health measures allow. And now it looks like we've turned the tide on the pandemic, and we're getting things under control, right? This is a shot. But I think as more of the population gets vaccinated, that pent-up demand that we know exists for people to see friends and family that they haven't been able to see in 18 months, and so is there, and we're looking forward to ramping up and helping them get to where they need to be. The last thing that we need, we're interested to see, we're very interested to see what the plan is to open those international borders. For people that have friends and family outside the country that want to see them, for our tourism and our hospitality sectors, which have been hit incredibly hard through this pandemic and are struggling to survive, they need to put in place the steps necessary to open up again. And without a plan to know when they can expect that, even with caveats such as vaccine rates or infection rates, they need to know that plan so they can start to make their own plans and own commitments. So I think we're in good shape. Our July schedule is looking outstanding. Direct flight to Toronto once a week, multiple options to get to Vancouver, a return to the Edmonton service, and more service on the Calgary. All that spells, I think, I'm cautiously optimistic that we've turned the corner on this and we can get back to a more normal life.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that cautious optimism, and I understand that it's hard almost to have that hope, because we've had a few moments of hope that have not panned out. So I'm really happy to see the people getting their shots. Thank you for sharing the T-shirt. I think these are the next steps. So recently, the Veterans Committee, of which I am a member of, did a study on commemoration and ways to honor veterans who have served our country. I know that several years ago, our office started working with the late Fred Bigelow, who was the last CEO for the airport, on a monument in the passenger lounge to recognize First Nations who served in the military. This commemoration piece has a rich history for many reasons, including the relationship between the 19 Wing and the Comox First Nation. I'm just wondering if you could tell us a bit about the history of this piece and what it means for your airport.
Yeah, certainly. We're privileged to host the Newport 2 in the hold room of the passenger terminal. The Newport 2 was an airplane. It's a replica World War I biplane that took place, that was built and participated in the Vimy flight, which flew over Vimy Ridge Monument for the 100th anniversary. And Mr. David Freeman was the owner. And as he got to the end of that 100th anniversary, he was looking for a way to have that legacy live on, and especially to to recognize the contribution of the First Nations in their sacrifices and commitment to Canada through various wars. And growing up in Comox as he was familiar with the Comox First Nation and the contribution they made. And so he wanted that gift to go as a commemoration to not only aviation and its role in the defense of Europe, but the contribution of the First Nations in that role. You got to go back a little bit in history. Comox First Nations Chief Andy Frank was asked to provide a new badge for the wing back in 1961, sorry. And this is before it was even a wing. It was a Canadian Forces base at that time. Mm-hmm. And at the time, the renowned carver Chief Mungo Martin was visiting Chief Frank. And so the two of them had a discussion and figured out how best to represent the wing. And it was Chief Martin who agreed to take on, and he approached Campbell River artist Jim King, who came up with the puntlage emblem of the Thunderbird. And I'm going to try this, but I'm going to get it wrong. The motto that goes with the Thunderbird was "I connaissant," I believe, which translated as "well able to take care of oneself." That's been modified over the years to be "by vigilance prepared," and now what we commonly say is "on watch." So 19 Wing is on watch. And that goes for both its long-range patrol mission and its search and rescue mission. Mm-hmm. So David Freeman was familiar with the emblem as it's displayed in the chapel at the wing, and he had been a participant. And he met with some of the local elders, and in that conversation with Fred Bigelow, became the idea of donating the Newport to the airport, but then having a representation of that emblem on it to signify the close relationship between First Nations, 19 Wing, and their sacrifice for in service to Canada. Now, obviously, time goes by, and you have to figure out a way to recreate that, but you want to do it in a traditionally respectful way. And so I was honored recently to have you at the terminal to look at the storyboards that tell the story of how all this came about. And so it was Chief Mungo Martin's great grandson, Chief David Mungo Knox, who recreated Jim King's design for the model and painted it on, and was there to participate when the blessing ceremony happened. And not only that, but Jim King's great grandson, Tyler Cramner, was also in attendance. So over a 60-year span, you have the legacy of First Nations families involved in, again, commemorating all First Nations and the Canadian forces and the support that they've given to Canada. And so now it hangs instead of a very old dinosaur as a lasting memorial to not only the sacrifice of those who have lost their lives in war, but also to the ongoing special relationship that exists between the Comox First Nations and all First Nations and 19 Wing here in the Comox Valley. So it's a nice local twist. Unfortunately, many who have been involved in that project are no longer with us. Captain David Freeman passed away, and Fred Bigelow passed away. But this enduring item will be a legacy to their involvement and their dedication in getting it on display in the airport. So we're very happy, we're very proud. And now we have some very nice storyboards with some very famous people on that cover, Rachel, to commemorate that and just to let people know the significance and why it's hanging in our holder.
Well, it was such an amazing project, and I can remember meeting with Captain David Freeman, and we checked out the plane, and it was just an amazing process to watch that unfold. And I was so happy to see the storyboards. I know it was very positive for me when the Minister of Veterans Affairs actually came and presented at the airport. It was amazing to see it all close down so that the minister could make the announcement about the funds to help with those storyboards. But it's so important because that repetitive history, people seeing that history, I think it's important that we continually connect people with that. So they're so amazing. I loved the story. I loved how collaborative it was. There was so many people who participated in making that happen. So it's just beautiful. So thank you for talking and telling everybody a little bit more about it.
Well,
So last weekend, speaking of amazing things in the Comox Valley, last weekend, of course, we were able to acknowledge the 100th birthday of veteran Stocky Edwards and his service to our country. It was absolutely amazing. I enjoyed it so much. And of course, it was COVID safe. A great way to celebrate his birthday, his service. And I know that you played a key role, although I'm sure you're going to tell us how you didn't play a key role. But could you just tell us a little bit about the multiple ways that we were able to honor him?
so yeah, Stocky is Stocky and Tony are incredible people. I got the privilege to meet them in 2016, and I kind of feel sometimes that they're my adopted parents in the local valley. So I still get to spend a lot of time with them. It's special. We wanted to make sure that we recognize Stocky's incredible career. He is the most soft-spoken and understated gentleman that I've ever met. It was nothing. And like most veterans of his era, they don't talk a lot about their experience. So that's will be unfortunate when that's gone. But what we did manage to do is, of course, we put on an appropriate COVID-safe birthday celebration for him, which included a flyby of 2 F-18s in the spirit of a fighter pilot that he loved immensely because he still his spirits in the air, and so he looked forward to those going over top, a cake, and then over 200 vehicles did a drive past to say, to try to figure out in a way that was COVID safe to say happy birthday and to show the respect they have for him as a member of our community. We do have to remember that Stocky and his wife Tony are not spring chickens anymore, and so we wanted to also find a way in which we could do it that wouldn't tire them out and wouldn't affect their health. So thanks to Dave Mellon and his incredible connections through the community, a golf cart to take him up to the end of the road, an RCMP and Canadian Forces escort to make sure that he was well protected. From his adoring fans, with his wife Tony by his side was just such a privilege to be part of and to ensure, and a birthday cake to boot. So yeah, Stocky, I look forward to his 101st birthday because I have little doubt that he'll be still there, waving and smiling and telling stories.
Yeah, well, and Dave Mellon is in everything. Like, I have to give credit to that human being. He's always there making sure things happen. And it was just fantastic. I was sitting in the parking lot over by the old hospital there for a very long time because there was so many cars. People from the community just wanted to drive by and wave to express their gratitude. And I couldn't agree more. He and Tony are just incredibly gentle people. They're so open and friendly, and I just really appreciate their service. And it was just good to recognize, because we have to recognize those veterans who served us so well.
Well, and in Stocky's words, he still can't figure out why everybody made such a fuss over his birthday, and he just can't figure it out. Don't they have something better to do, is what his words were. And I assured him, no, Stocky, they have nothing better to do. This is for you. So congratulations.
Congratulations is right. And it's fun. It's fun to just, especially during COVID when we have not been able to do those community events that we're so used to doing, to come all together and be able to, even if we're in our vehicles, drive by and wave. It felt good to be part of that lineup. So thank you for all the work you did.
200 vehicles, quite an outpouring.
It was quite an outpouring. All right, so we're about to wrap up. I have one last question, and this part is just to be light and fun and remind everyone that we're all human. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first of them being, what is your favorite beverage?
So many to choose from. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. Recently, in my posting back to the UK, I rekindled my love of gin and tonics. And I got to say, coming back and specifically craft gin and tonics, the UK has a huge purview of craft gin and tonics, which they will deliver to your door.
Mm.
Maybe you could work on that, Rachel.
I'll see what I can do.
Um, but and so moving back to the valley, I've been trying to keep up that tradition, and so unruly gin from the Wayward Distillery is a personal favorite, and Shelter Point is not that far behind. So the local gin in the valley is great, and I look forward to getting a little bit farther away from home and seeing what else there was. But gin and tonics, it would be for me.
Perfect. Well, those are two great places to go. We have, it's amazing to see the breweries, the vineyards, and of course, the Lake Shelter Point Distillery, the development of those in our region. I just think it adds an extra and important flair. So, can you tell us one of your most favorite books or a movie?
So, yeah, having young kids and having the ability to sit down with them and watch movies has always been fun for us as a family. And so the Disney classics are there. But funnily enough, our favorite one is the whole Pirates of the Caribbean series. And we can watch that time and time again as a family and love it and see something that you still haven't seen the last time. Johnny Depp, I think, is brilliant in that movie, and just the way the whole thing is laid out. So, it's a little bit fun. It's a little bit lighthearted. I'm sure, like you, I do a lot of professional reading, and it's nice to be able to unplug and do something else once in a while, and to share it with family is really cool. So, yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's fantastic. Well, for my family, it's Lord of the Rings. Every once in a while, they tell me we're doing it all, and it's a long day, let me tell you. But it's again one of those great moments where you just get to be with your family, and that is a beautiful thing. And the last question for you today is, you've moved back here to the Comox Valley, and I stand up in the House of Commons often and say I represent the most beautiful riding on the planet, and I really do believe that. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us why you love where you live now.
Yeah, like you said, it's a beautiful place to live, natural beauty. The outdoor activities are outstanding. Skiing on Mount Washington or boating on the Straits. There's just so much to do, so much outside. Um, we've determined that, being outside and being active are the things that keep you young. And you can do that all year long here in a variety of activities. So it's a natural beauty, but it's also the people. We have more friends here in the 4 years that we've spent here than we have anywhere else that we've lived. It's a very welcoming, open community that doesn't stand on pretense. And so we've just made so many great friends. That in combination with a gorgeous place to live, it's a natural place to put roots down. As I said, we've moved around for our entire military career. The kids don't have a home. Well, now they can start to move around, and we'll establish a home base somewhere they can come back to. So, yeah, we're just really privileged to be back in the valley, and to be able to call this home.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. And I am so happy that you're back home where you belong, and really, really happy about you taking on this new and important role in our region. And thank you for just educating us a little bit about why the Comox Valley Airport is important and what asset it brings to our region. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're very busy, so I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Rachel. Always have time for you. You know my phone number. Give me a call.
Always. So thank you everybody for participating today. Next week, we will actually, it looks like, have two guests, which is a little bit different. We'll be talking to the folks that work with the Little Red Dress project. It's a very important project in our region, and I want to talk a little bit about the benefits and the work that they are doing personally to support what we need to see in Canada for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Thank you again, Mike, and thank you everybody, and we'll see you again next Friday.